Hi, my name is Juan, and welcome to The Couch, a podcast where real therapists talk about real things. Please remember that we are therapists, but we are not your therapists, and this podcast is intended for educational purposes only.
All right, my friends, we are back for another episode. This one really came from, I've been watching Shrinking on Apple TV. Have you seen that show? Now, if you haven't, it's about a group of counselors and their lives, experiences they've went through. So that show made me think about childhood wounds, attachment wounds, how they shape us as adults, how they impact us. And my hope is that you're able to maybe go check out that show, Shrinking. Maybe you're able to think about this episode a little bit, and perhaps some of it relates. So let's start with this. Let's start with this one question. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I'll never parent like my mom. I'll never parent like my dad. Right? Whatever that caretaker was. Or why do I react like my dad, even though I promised myself I wouldn't? You know, maybe those have been some thoughts that have swam up there in the old noggin. I thought about that through that show Shrinking when Jason Segel, hopefully pronouncing that name right, and Harrison Ford, right? They're in the show and notice Jimmy trying to be a good father after losing his wife. And what happens is, you know, he finds himself in these moments where those childhood wounds show up. Let's kind of take a step back. We don't just inherit our parents' eyes or their smile, skin tone. We inherit their attachment patterns, right, through lived experiences. Today in this episode of The Couch, I'm your host, Dr. Juan Santos, counselor over at Santos Counseling. We are going to dive into attachment wounds, father wounds, mother wounds, and why they often show up. You know, especially during those moments when we're parenting. So let's go here. What exactly is an attachment wound? An attachment wound is an injury, an emotional injury, right? And this emotional injury develops when our emotional needs weren't consistently met during our upbringing, right? So it means when you were a child, maybe your house was hectic. Maybe your dad drank a lot and did some really mean things. Maybe you walked on eggshells and you were always looking at your parents' expression, just trying to stay a few steps ahead so that, you know, some of those things wouldn't take place. And you know, here you are, right? Here you are. Notice something important. This doesn't necessarily always mean abuse. Many loving parents unintentionally create attachment wounds because they were going through some shit, right? They were emotionally overwhelmed, anxious, emotionally unavailable. Or, you know, here's something that happens a lot. Sometimes repetition, simply repeating what they've learned. Children don't interpret events logically. They interpret them emotionally. I had a class during my doctorate that went into some light conversation on wounds. And I remember that was part of it, you know, looking at the development of kids and how they develop these items through the interpretation of what's happening on an emotional level. A child might conclude, right, I'm too much. My feelings don't matter. People leave. Love has to be earned. Those beliefs don't disappear, right, just because they turn 16, 17, 18. They don't disappear just because a kid got into college. Those beliefs don't just disappear. They often become an operating system, right? Part of the operating system. So if you are a computer, those items you got during childhood that impact attachment, they just get downloaded into that son of a gun. And here we are as adults, right? Here we are doing our best. You know, just for a moment as you listen to this episode too, please give yourself love and kindness. It's a tough topic, especially coming face to face with that reality. Now, attachment doesn't stay in childhood. Many people, and I've sat down with people, many people sit and share that it goes away, right? Just like that. Many people think attachment is something psychologists only talk about with babies, right? A young toddler attached to their parents. Attachment follows. It follows us like a shadow everywhere. Attachment, those things we go through, they influence friendships, how we date, why we date, marriage, how we show up in that marriage. Heck, they even influence work relationships, how we show up. And eventually, right, when you become a parent or you are a parent, they can influence you in that area too. It's like this, just like that software I told you, right? It's an invisible software running in the background. Sometimes you don't even know it and it pops up. So we got to build that awareness. So there's a scene, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the show Shrinking, Jimmy from Shrinking. One reason, Shrinking resonates with so many people is that Jimmy isn't a bad father. If you haven't watched it, watch it a little bit. You'll see a lot of really awesome things that he does. I mean, he remembers things about his daughter. He has that piano scene where he's playing the piano with his friends. There's so much love pouring from that guy towards the people around him. But you know what? We also see that he's wounded. After losing his wife, right, emotionally, I mean, he goes to a dark place. He emotionally disappears. He loves his daughter, but his grief, right, that grief makes him unavailable. He's there, right? He's physically present, but you can see this emotional gap, this emotional space that still is very much alive, right? That operating system. And for many people watching that show, I think it becomes like a reality check of, hey, am I going through some of that? Children don't only need food, clothes, shelter, a roof over their head, right? Those are important items, part of that Maslow hierarchy. They need what we as adults need, right? They need emotional availability. They need someone that sees them with both eyes, that notices them. They need someone that can co-regulate with them. Maybe someone that says, hey son, I know this is hard. And in that show, Jimmy, I start to notice that he slowly realizes that loving your child isn't always enough. Being emotionally accessible, that matters too. And there's a distinction in there. This kind of goes into that space of father wound. Maybe you're a dad listening in. People often hear father wound, and immediately, right, I think in all the years of therapy, one of the common things that comes up when I bring that up is abandonment. And sometimes, that's true. But father wounds can happen, it can happen in so many ways. Maybe dad was overly critical. Maybe dad was unpredictable. Maybe he was always gone, always working, not there, emotionally distant. Even though he was there, still a distance. Physically, the son of a gun was present, but emotionally checked out. Try to have an intimate conversation with dad, uncomfortable. He became uncomfortable. You feel like it's impossible to please this guy. So you know what? Kids internalize those experiences. They go into that system I told you about, that operating system. It gets downloaded in there. And what does that mean? That means that kid that's always trying to please that dad, maybe that kid has in their operating system that I need to be perfect. I got to be a people pleaser. Maybe that kid that has that dad that's just not emotionally available, perhaps that kid avoids vulnerability altogether. Others constantly search for approval from other authority figures, other maybe male figures. And it's not, please know this and put it in bold, underline it. It's not because they're weak. It's because of that operating system. That operating system, it goes right to their nervous system, right in there. It's because their nervous system learned that acceptance, it wasn't a guarantee. And it's not just that. There's mother wounds too. Mother wounds sometimes look differently. Sometimes maybe mom was anxious. Maybe she relied on one of the kids. And maybe you were one of those kids that started to give this adult-like emotional support. Perhaps she was controlling. Right? Controlling because there was a fear of losing someone. Maybe she criticized to motivate you. Right? Odd how those words go together, right? My mom criticized me to motivate me. Or perhaps she struggled with depression. Maybe she was going through something deep in there. And that created this gap of, I can't emotionally connect with you and be there for you. And again, the issue isn't to blame, it's to understand. Most parents, I think as a whole, right? Most parents try their best, do their best. They use the tools they have. So we look at how do these wounds show up in parenting, right? Right now, I'm a dad. I've got 2 kids. Sometimes I feel like I'm doing a good job, but sometimes I feel like, man, I'm not sure today. This moment was one of my best parenting moments, and I'm sure you relate listening to that. There's times I'll be critical about myself. There's times I wing it. There's times maybe I pick something that I want to do, then I go, this is being a good dad. Here's where it gets interesting. Parenting has a way of activating unresolved childhood wounds. And I know I feel that. I feel that where sometimes these wounds, they come out. There's situations I may have, like with my son, and I am about to say something, and then I notice that my words are coming from a wound that I had with my own upbringing, and I really have to pause myself. It's like the Fred Flintstone cartoons where he's trying to stop the car, and he just puts both feet on the ground. I have to do that so that my wound doesn't spill out onto my child. Imagine your toddler, right? Just as an example here, has this huge tantrum. And if your own emotions weren't welcomed growing up, right? They weren't received well growing up. Your child's emotions might suddenly feel for you that this is too much, this is overwhelming. And then that's that wound that I was telling you about. That's that operating system that got downloaded. So instead of a parent hearing, my child is struggling, my child's having a hard time, your nervous system hears, this is not safe. Or if you constantly had to earn love through achievement, and I've worked with some clients over the years where they've shared that with me. Said, hey, that was my household. If I wanted to receive love, I had to bring home some kind of medal, some kind of A. You know what? That leads to the operating system getting downloaded in there. You might unknowingly pressure your child to perform. So, maybe reflect on that. Check yourself on that. See if that's happening. And it's not because you don't love them. I'm sure there's a lot of love in there. But because that's the language, that is the language, the operating system language your nervous system learned. You see how we're kind of adding these things up? So there's 4 common parenting patterns that you probably are aware of. The overprotective parent, right? I don't want my child to experience anything painful. The goal is typically love. The outcome can be anxiety. There is the perfectionist parent. Everything has to be done just right. Mistakes, for this perfectionist parents, they feel dangerous. There is the emotionally avoidant parent. When my kid cries, the parent, you just want to jump and fix it. Or you want to stop it or distract it. And not because you don't care. Right? This emotionally avoidant parent, they jump into that because emotions were not safe in their own childhood. And then there's the approval-seeking parent. Some parents become so focused on being liked by their children. Really sit on that one. And you can hear it in the words, the approval-seeking parent. Right? And this parent focuses so much on being liked that they struggle to set boundaries, to set healthy limits. Why? Because these really great boundaries, these healthy limits, for this parent, when they were a child, boundaries feel like rejection. Because once this parent as a child experienced love, conditional love. So we got to look at breaking the cycle, right? And I appreciate that you hear, we're on the surface, my friend, when it comes to this space of attachment and wounds and parenting and how those lead into life. So here's the encouraging part. Attachment isn't a destiny. The research tells us something. The research says parents that show up, parents that try, that's the work. That's the emphasis. Research consistently shows that parents don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. Good enough parenting. It's actually a book on that, and I believe, don't quote me on this, or some work around it. A psychologist, Winnicott, I believe that's the name. Children don't need to be perfect. They need repair. That means for you and I as parents, when we lose our temper, come back. Right? When you make a mistake, apologize. When you have a misunderstanding with your child, reconnect. Do you see the repair in that? Repair is actually one, and I see this, just through over a decade as a counselor. I have to just put a list of, the top strategies, the top things to engage in. I'm going to put this one up there. I think that repair is one of the most powerful ways that children develop their attachment. It teaches them that, this is how I've seen it in my work. It teaches them that the relationships they can be okay. They can survive conflict. And when you think about repair, again, that's like if I'm with my child and I raise my voice and I know that it was inappropriate that I did that, I apologize rather than stand in this ego position. I say, I'm sorry. That's the repair. Here's some questions that I would love for you to reflect on. What emotions were not allowed in your childhood? What did you not receive that you needed to receive in your childhood? When you were a kid and you were upset, what happened on the outside? What happened on the inside? What did you go through? Think about some of those things and then bring them back into the here and now. If you're a parent listening to this, bring this back into the present moment. Ask yourself, when my child is upset, what happens inside of me? What emotions am I comfortable with around my child? Ask yourself this, when I am reacting to my child, is it to my child or is it to my younger self? Sometimes for parents, I think a really strong breakthrough isn't necessarily learning a new parent strategy. It's the hard and intentional and purposeful and grounding work of healing the child inside the parent. So here's a closing thought. You don't have to erase your childhood to change your family's future, to change your future. Healing doesn't mean pretending that nothing happened. It means understanding. It means understanding. Recognizing the pieces of your own life, your own childhood. Recognizing pieces of your own parent. Or simply showing up with more intention. I'd love for you to maybe even listen to this episode again, share it with another parent in your circle. If you have a partner, share it with your partner. Let the conversation flow. Go watch that show, Shrinking. See what takes place when you bring these two together. My friends, thank you for listening to the College Podcast. My name is Dr. Santos. I hope this episode resonated with you. Share it with someone in your circle. As mentioned, share it with a parent or someone who's doing the hard work of breaking generational patterns. Until next time, do me a kindness, take care of yourself. And remember, healing yourself is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself and you can give your children. I'll see you in the next episode.